Hello, are you confused about the type of 3D printing materials you should use with your 3D printer at your clinical practice? Well, you've come to the right place. In this video, you will learn about the most common types of 3D printing materials. You will learn about their cost and their properties. The most used 3D printing materials are polylactic acid filaments, also known as PLA filaments, acrylonitrile butadiene styrene filaments, also known as ABS filaments, polyethylene terephthalate glycol filaments, also known as PETG filaments, resin, and polyamide 12 powder. PLA, ABS, and PETG filaments are used with fusion deposit modeling 3D printers. Resin is used with stereolithography 3D printers, and polyamide 12 powder is used with selective laser sintering 3D printers. Please check out the video where I discussed types of 3D printers to learn more about these printers. PLA filament is arguably the most common type of printing filaments. The average cost of a spool of PLA filament is between $20 and $25. A spool of PLA filament can last up to 4 to 6 months depending on how much printing you do. Some of the advantages of PLA filaments is that it is easy to print, it doesn't emit a pungent odor during printing, it comes in multiple colors and styles, it is biodegradable, which makes it environmentally friendly, it is strong, flexible, and durable. It requires a print temperature between 356 degrees Fahrenheit and 446 degrees Fahrenheit. And lastly, it is not soluble in water. On the other hand, PLA filaments tends to deform when exposed to a temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, and can become brittle after extensive use. Therefore, you should avoid using it to print devices that are prone to bending and twisting. Another commonly used 3D printing filament is the acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, also known as ABS filaments. The average cost of ABS filaments is between $20 and $27. A spool of ABS filaments can last up to 4 to 6 months. ABS filaments comes in multiple colors and styles. It is flexible, strong, highly durable, and resistant to high temperatures. On the other hand, ABS filament requires a high print temperature between 410 degrees Fahrenheit and 482 degrees Fahrenheit. ABS filament is more challenging to print compared to PLA filament and requires a hot print bed and nozzle before printing can occur. It produces low toxic fumes during printing and is non-biodegradable. The next printing filament is called polyethylene terephthalate glycol filament, also known as PETG filament. The average cost of PETG filament is between $23 and $40. A spool of PETG filament can last up to 3 months, depending on how often you print. PETG filament is easier to print compared to PLA and ABS filaments. It is more flexible and durable compared to PLA filaments, and it is insoluble in water. However, it requires a high printing temperature between 428 degrees Fahrenheit and 482 degrees Fahrenheit, and a print bed temperature of 122 degrees Fahrenheit and 167 degrees Fahrenheit. It can absorb moisture from the hair. It can become sticky when printed and scratches easily. Resin printing material is compatible with stereolithography 3D printers. The average cost of resin is between $25 and $50. 500 milliliter of resin can last up to 2 weeks when printing small objects and 2 to 3 days when printing large objects. Resin produces fast, accurate, and precise printing. It is also strong and durable. However, resin filament is expensive. A resin 3D printed object is prone to warp and shrinkage. The last printing material is the polyamide 12 powder, also known as nylon 12. This printing material is compatible with stereo laser sintering 3D printers. The average cost of this powder is between $50 and $60. Nylon 12 is highly resistant to high temperatures. It can be used to print complex objects. It offers high precision printing and can be purchased at a low cost. It has a low moisture absorption rate and is resistant to chemicals. However, it has a high warp or shrink rate. It is important to know the types of 3D printing materials, their compatibility with 3D printers, and their characteristics before printing a 3D object. Thank you for your time.